Okay, so we'll get started. First of all, a very big hello and warm welcome to everybody that's joining us today. My name's Charlene Cottle. I'm joined today by some of my colleagues. So we have Joe from our change and adoption team. We have Nin from our M365 consulting team. And we also have Anton, who is one of the associate partners here at WM. And he's going to be talking to us a bit later today about AI. And if we flip on, just I guess to talk to you a little bit about who we all are and what we all do. Flipped on a bit too far there, Joe, if you don't mind going back for me one. But just to introduce us also, I look after our retail and transport business unit here at WM Reply. I've got a huge interest in everything frontline workers. I probably talk a little bit too much and everybody goes a bit nuts at me, but we've had this webinar series that we've been delivering this year, and it is really off the back of all of the work that we've been doing over the past few years, which has been really much more frontline worker focused. I've introduced you to the team, but just to give a bit of context, so Joe is one of our senior change and adoption consultants here at WM, and Joe's been really heavily aligned to some of our frontline worker projects as well, and is really focused today on how we can start to drive adoption. So that is really the key theme here within today's webinar. But we're also joined by Nin. So Nin is one of the winners of our innovation lab, and she'll tell you a little bit more about that later today. But she's here to talk to you about the Frontline Digest, which is, as it says, a frontline specific application that you can bring into teams. And I think it's going to be a really kind of cool solution for a lot of our clients. And we've got Anton today. We've got the real life version of Anton, not the AI Anton, and he's here to talk to you about some of the AI solutions specifically for the frontline as well. So if we move on, just to give you a quick overview, I mentioned before that we've got this webinar series that we're delivering, and I'll very quickly talk about why it is that we're doing this. So I think for a good, huge chunk of time, if you know WM Reply, if you've worked with us in the past, you'll know that we have been building great modern work solutions for lots and lots of years. But actually, probably maybe 3-4 years ago, we started on this frontline journey with lots of our clients who were starting to look at what could potentially be the benefits of investing in our frontline, because you've got a huge number of people, probably your biggest audience, and we really want to see how we can, save on our costs. How can we make them more productive, make them more efficient? And so we started doing this wider envisioning piece, which looked at how do we remove pain points for frontline workers, but how do we better enable them? How do we make them more productive? And since then, we've started to work with lots of our clients on lots of different journeys. So with some building custom solutions that really fit their needs, with some on helping them to better leverage the Viva suite, with some how we can extend the current capabilities with teams to make that more fit for purpose for the front line. And with some of our clients, it's about how we can bring in some of their third-party applications into one solution. And the reason why we're delivering this webinar series this year is really so we can start to share that expertise and to share some of these ideas. And so where we are now, if we move on again, is at the third instalment of our webinar series this year. So for the very first one, and we can share the links to the past recordings as well, the very first one was really looking at that return on investment. So that is always, what is the business case for enabling our frontline workers? What are some of the savings that we can expect to make, whether that's productivity, whether that's cost? And then for the second piece, we started to look at some of the practical solutions. So actually, what does the experience look like, or what can it look like for frontline workers? And this session today is focused on adoption, but we have also, given the nature of what's happening within technology at the moment, also asked Nin and Anton to join us to talk about some of the other cool things that we're doing in this space. And then we'll have the final part of the series that will take place in November, and that is really going to be looking at a bit of a deeper dive into some of the top tips that Joe's going to share with you in a little bit. So just a couple of reminders then, if we move on, please ask questions as we go. We will be monitoring the Q&A. There's a few of us here to talk to you today, so depending on who's speaking, we'll share the Q&A. Hopefully we'll have some time at the end, but please do feel free to ask your question, because if we don't have time at the end, it's quite a packed agenda. We'll try and answer them in the chat. And if you would like any further information There'll be an email address that you can drop us a line at, and one of us will get back to you. And the final thing is that there'll be a feedback form as well at the end, and we really do appreciate your feedback, because if you do join us and if you do know as well, we've been running lots of webinars this year, and it seems to be a preferred format for a lot of our clients, potential clients. And so it's great to get your feedback and to understand a little bit more about what you're interested in hearing about. So I will now pass over to our lovely Jo Matthews, who's got some great advice and tips for you, really focused on adoption.
Thank you very much, Charlene. Yes, so as Charlene said previously, I am a senior change and adoption consultant here at WM Reply, which means that I'm really focused on the people side of things and really helping people adopt new technology. Because what we see, no surprises here on my next screen. Generally speaking, people don't like change. We're creatures of habit. We work in ways and systems that we're used to working in. We get comfortable. And when people try and change things, particularly at work, we just think, ugh, can't we just stick with the status quo? I know I've been complaining for the past month or several months that something's slowing me down, but actually I don't really want to change it either. And that's why I have a job. It's to come in and help people through that change and understand the benefits. But even more, when we look at the frontline and we think about frontline employees here, it's even harder for them to adapt these change, because frontline workers tend to be very busy. They're on the move, they're out there customer facing, getting things done. They've not got a lot of time to invest in thinking about change. They're just trying to get on with their current role and juggling lots of different things at once. So when we start talking about change, particularly things like new technology, it starts to feel a bit overwhelming. You start thinking, oh, when am I going to have time for this? It's something else for me to do. So it can be really challenging to help the frontline workers come through on that change journey and understand that this is something we're doing to help them and something for them, rather than something that's being done to you just for the sake of things. We really want those benefits to shine through. So this is why we're here talking specifically about change and adoption with Frontline today. So what we really need to think about when we're rolling out change with those first-line workers is really making sure that something we're changing really is going to tap into the needs of that frontline worker. What is their individual pain point? Because then what we can start to do is say, the reason we're rolling out this change is it's going to help you in the short term with X, Y, Z, and it's going to help you do things more quickly and more easily. And there's also longer term benefits for the organisation as well. We need to make sure that it's coming across as something that's attractive for the frontline worker, and it's really worth their time to initially go, okay, I understand I might have a week or two where things feel a bit different and a bit new, but it's worth me taking the time and effort to understand this. And we want to do that by being really engaging from the onset. How do we get through with really nice visual materials, things that are going to be eye-catching, that make this change feel easy to adopt, as well as worthwhile adopting it? Because I want to understand, as a frontline worker, what is in it for me in this? Why can I not just stick with what I already know? But the trouble is, this is a difficult to access group. So how do we even know exactly what it is that they need? How do we know what those pain points are initially? And then even once we do know that, how do we communicate that message out to the frontline workers to talk to them about what the benefits are? How do we actually get that message through to say we have listened and this is going to help you? And this is where, when it comes to change and adoption, we have to have a really specific frontline worker directed approach. We cannot just assume that change that might impact an entire organisation, we cannot assume that information workers sat at their laptop every day are going to react to something in the same way that a frontline worker who's on their feet using mobile devices, etc., might adapt to a change. We need to think specifically about these user groups to support them through this journey and really get that message through to them. And what that starts to look like is a journey that could be completely unique for different industries, different organisations, but also different for individual roles. So we can still use our traditional ADKAR change management journey here, but we need to think about how it's got to be tailored for each of those individual roles across this journey. So when we think about initially how we're going to make sure they're aware that the change is coming up, and we're going to talk about shortly how this is the real point we've got to nail to be able to make the rest of this journey as smooth and easy for them to come along with as it possibly can be. We then need to think about, okay, what are the benefits here that we talked about before that are really going to help you and answer that what is in it for me piece? What's going to make them actually want to come on this change and invest their time to make these changes? Equally, they might say, right, yeah, that sounds great, but all sounds a bit complicated. How do I actually adopt this? I'm an absolute technophobe. I don't want to take new technology on. And we say, don't worry, we're going to help you along the way. But we need to think about actually what are their knowledge gaps? What are all of those different people working across those roles, whether they're from different backgrounds, different kind of job roles? How do we make sure they've got the knowledge that they need to be able to do this? And also the ability to do it. Are they physically enabled to go away and make these changes? Do they have the right devices in place? Do they have the help and systems along the way? And are we going to make it nice and easy for them to actually go away and adopt this? Before lastly, making sure we've got that continuous reinforcement that's going to speak to those individual roles to make sure they keep reminding themselves, yep, don't want to go back into old habits, don't want to go back into old ways of working, because I can see the benefits here, and actually there's something in it for me along the way as well. So how do we make sure that this journey is accessible to different frontline roles? And as we said, that awareness and desire right at the beginning of that journey is going to be really important. If we lose people in those early stages, it's going to be really hard for them to take them through the ability piece and the reinforcement piece and the rest of it later down the line. So what we need to do with the frontline, more importantly than ever, we say this with most projects anyway, but particularly when it comes to frontline workers, is we need to have a really powerful discovery phase where we go, right, we need to really speak to these people and understand what those pain points are. Let me sit down and talk to different people across different businesses and say, right, what is it that you find really annoying at work at the moment? What is it that actually you wish you could do more quickly? So that we can make sure we are designing a solution that is going to genuinely benefit them, rather than it just being a business benefit that they might think, you know, sounds great, but it's just not worth my time investing. We also love getting frontline workers involved in designing the solution, saying to them, okay, we've got some different options here, which sounds like it might really help you. Let's speak to managers, speak to team leaders, start to understand, actually, if this was an option, do you think that would work with your team? So we can get genuine feedback as early as possible and also get people feel involved and say that this is something that has been designed by you for you. And then when it comes to how we actually roll it out, that narrative is going to be so important. It's taking people on a journey as easily as we can and saying, this is why we're doing this for starters. This is going to be a really powerful message we want to get across. It's going to help you by doing X, Y, Z. It's going to really build up this platform for you to be able to come and do everything in one place. It's going to make it easier than ever, and making sure that along that narrative, we are clarifying those benefits as we go. And we want to make that content as easy to access as possible. So I talk about training here. We're going to talk about this a bit more in detail shortly, but it's going actually along with this as well. There's going to be loads of different knowledge and different support materials to help you along the way in really easy to consume and access format, so you can be supported throughout this journey and someone's going to be there to hold your hand throughout it. So before we talk about those steps in more detail, let's just think about some of the trends that we're seeing across different industries at the moment, particularly with frontline workers. So in retail, it's no secret that our retail employees are super busy. Their capacity is, generally speaking, very closely planned. People have got certain tasks they need to do and it's expected to take X amount of time. They can be difficult to reach as well. There's a lot of reliance on line managers that we're hearing where people just say, how do you understand what you've got to work on this week? Oh, well, my line manager tells me. Okay, what happens if your line manager isn't working with you at the same time? What if you're on different shifts? It can be really difficult to get that message through. And of course, all of these things lead to people being quite time poor as well. So it's difficult to get people excited about change. On to transport here. I'm sure many of those things also apply in a transport setting, but on top of that, we're talking to people who are working in high risk areas. They're working in situations which could be dangerous, and so we need to make sure we're taking that into account as well. We're talking about things that might feel a little bit by the by to them. They're thinking, oh, I'm putting myself at risk. I haven't really got time to listen to you talking about these new technologies and things. That means we need to get the message through really loud and clear early on. Why is this going to benefit you, and why is it worth your time coming to listen to this right now? We can often have some more traditional roles working in the transport sector too, some old school ways of working. So we need to start thinking about actually how we can make sure this is accessible for a wide range of employees as well. And of course, again, difficult to reach, lots of messages coming through via word of mouth, rather than people directly being able to go somewhere and access the news or find out what the latest information is in one place. In financial services as well, similarly, we're talking about people working shifts, and it can be difficult to get comms to staff as well as from staff. That two-way communication piece is going to be really important throughout this change journey as well. We're seeing more and more people moving to online banking, which means that some of those branches are shrinking. It can mean that there might even be some kind of job changes, and we need to be sensitive to that with people as well. When we start talking about change, when we start talking about investing in new tech, we need to make it really, really clear that this is going to support those changes. It's in line with all those changes, rather than feeling like more change that's harder to get your head around. People are often working on shared devices, and we see that across the front line as well, across all different sectors. And generally, people kind of taking on new roles now, moving from between client visits, moving from place to place. You might have some people still using paperwork, and it's all about understanding actually there's still going to be time for these things, or it's going to be quicker than ever for you to do what you used to do on paper, because we've now got a new system in place to do that for you. And in the public sector, there is often a requirement that we're seeing that requires frontline workers in particular to be on site to complete a piece of training or a piece of learning. And this can mean it's a little bit harder to get people in the room to understand what the latest thing is they need to take on. We've also got lots of third-party providers, and we always see this across all the sectors anyway, but particularly with the public sector, some kind of old school systems that might sit there still. We know they might need updating, but it's going to take us a long time to get there. So for now, what can we do to start making some integrations there so it's simple to get information across from one system to another, to avoid that double keying and time consuming manual kind of jobs there. Now, we've specifically worked with the police a lot recently here at WM Reply as well. And one of the things we're seeing that's been great is using Viva Engage, or what was Yammer, to start to solve local issues, and getting the Chief Constable really visual on Viva Engage as well, and using that as a platform to get messages across to people, but also open the floor for people to feed back to the business as well. And similarly with the NHS, we all know NHS staff are super stretched. How do you get comms and change campaigns and things through to the NHS, but they're just thinking, I am absolutely stretched right now. You know, I've got so much to think about. This feels like a lot. We need to make it as simple for them as possible. So why listen to me about this today? Why listen to WM or work with WM in this change and adoption piece, particularly when it comes to frontline workers? Now, first of all of our change and adoption consultants are Microsoft specialists too. We're not just here to deliver generic change. We really do understand the tools that we're working with. So when we're talking about these tools, we can understand the benefits. We've worked with them before. We've worked with frontline workers before, and we can really think about how we frame that into a message that's going to speak directly to those roles and really share those benefits there. But we can also be technology agnostic. We understand that actually there's other systems out there that people are working with. The whole world isn't focused around Microsoft as much as we'd love it to be. And, you know, there are other platforms, and we can understand actually how we need to think about how those platforms are going to come into this as well. We can understand that people are tied to our ways of working, and think about how they can complement each other rather than it being one or the other. We're also really used to working with our technical consultants. There is a lot of technical jargon sometimes. There's lots of kind of technical setup things in the background. And the great thing is we are used to working with them. We understand the language that they use, and we're used to working at pace with those technical teams as well. So we can really work hand in hand on a start to finish approach along with our project managers to really support that change and adoption journey. And one of the things I will always absolutely shout about in WM Reply is our design team. I have worked for change management consultancies before that just do not do this as well as WM Reply. We've got an incredible design team which create these campaigns that really speak to the tools. They immediately visually give you a way of just getting the message across, which can speak to frontline workers. We can get visual things up which are eye-catching to get that message through quickly and easily in a nice visual way. And lastly, we do win awards for this stuff. This is where I could put up a slide that talks you through all the different awards that we've won and clap us on the back. But ultimately, here's our managing partner, Baxter, with one of our latest awards. We are really proud of what we deliver, and we really do love working on this stuff, and we do get rewarded for it. So, now I've told you why we're so great at this and why we really understand it, I'd like to talk us through some top tips that we would suggest for rolling out change to frontline workers. Now, I'm going to go into each one of these little tips in a bit more detail on our next session in November the 15th, so do sign up to that if you want to hear more. But for now, we're just going to go through a whole handful of them at a relatively high level, but start thinking about how we can address those change management tips. So we talked through this briefly before. Number one for me is involving frontline workers in the solution design. It's all about saying we have listened to what you want, and we've also worked with you. We've worked with people in your role to really think about how we can make this better for you. So it's showing that it's not someone sat behind a laptop, sat at a desk all day going, oh yeah, we think this is going to be best for you. No, we've really listened to you and we want to design this to work for you. And so that's how we're going to help really talk to the benefits there. Second here, always pilot. We want to identify small groups. It might be that it's in a group that we think, yeah, this is going to be really nice for that particular group to reap the benefits from. Let's try rolling out with them first. And what that's going to do is, first of all, give us the opportunity to get feedback straight away. We can start to get those feedback early on, so we can make some amendments, so we can make sure when we roll out to a wider group that we've got the best solution possible rolling out at day one, or at least the best initial solution possible. Of course, we're always looking for continuous development anyway. But equally, it gives us the opportunity to say, we've got some really nice use cases over here. We've had this particular team that have started using this a few months ago, and here's some of the benefits they're seeing. And then suddenly that gives us really nice campaign material, and we can bring that in and say, look, here's other people doing your role or very similar role to you, talking about how great this technology has been for them and how it's been for them. So it becomes very relatable for people starting to adopt this as well. Number three, I've said this lots, I'm going to say it again. Comms have got to be short, sharp, accessible, to the point. We have to get through the message as quickly as possible. I actually spoke to Charlene about this just this morning, and we were saying how often, even if you saw a generic news article pop up on your web browser, how often do you just read the title? Do you actually go in and open a full news article and read through it all? We need the message to come through as loud and clearly as possible from really, really easy accessible comms for people that are super busy and on the move. So it's got to be getting it through in concise ways, break it down into small chunks for people to be able to do one step at a time along that change journey. Of course, keep talking about benefits. The focus has to be not, oh, this technology can do all this stuff and it does X, Y, Z and it's really cool for you. It's straight away, we know you've got this problem and this tech is going to help you do that by doing X, Y, Z. And we know that people have complained that they're finding this very manual every day. Well, hello, welcome new technology. This is going to help you and speed things up. It's got to come straight in and talk about what is in it for you and why is it worth you coming on this journey with us. And again, doing that in a short, concise way, a nice visual way to make it really engaging along the journey there. Another way that we really like to make this engaging and get that kind of relatable kind of message coming through is also to use champions. So we know that when we roll out change, we want to come at it from top down and bottom up. We need to make sure that we've got people who are working alongside those frontline workers and say, actually, yeah, do you know what? I've been trying this for a few weeks now, and actually there's some cool stuff here. And you're going to have those resistors, but it's when they've got a peer they're working with next to them that goes, oh yeah, I was with you at the beginning. I sort of thought, oh, I can't be bothered with this. What's the point? But I started using it and actually I've seen some really cool stuff. Let me just show you quickly. And it's having those peer-to-peer relationships that we see coming through so strong in frontline workers. We want to use those to have those champions who really get it and can help us sell this at a peer-to-peer level, rather than it just being people talking and telling people what to do. Let's get people showing who are working alongside them day to day as well. And we'd like to see that coming from a variety of roles. We absolutely have to get leadership on board and have them driving this as well. We need those role models in senior positions, but equally, isn't it great when there's someone who is sat right next to you? You don't think they're necessarily going to be a natural adopter, but they're here going, no, if I can do this, you can do it too. And this is an interesting one when we talk about supporting people through this journey. Quite often in change and adoption, we talk about training, but actually sometimes training can sound a little bit daunting. Training can sound like, oh gosh, well, how many hours am I going to have to put into studying this and, you know, finding the time to train myself up on this? And actually, a lot of the time, a lot of the technology we're rolling out, particularly when it comes to Microsoft Tech, is fairly intuitive. You know, if you can use WhatsApp to talk about something, then you could probably use Teams chat in exactly the same way. If you can go away and search for on any internet site and go and find the information that you need, then actually you can probably use our new intranet and it's going to be really easy and accessible for you to use. So it's talking more about supporting people rather than having to be this formal training that can sound a little bit daunting, feel like it's going to be time consuming. Let's actually say to people, you know what, this is a safe space for you just to go and give it a try. There is support material in place for where you need it, but just give this a try and we'll talk you through it as we go. You've got the champions group to lean on. You've got this training in place if you want it, and let's make it really bite-sized and easy to access. But actually, a lot of the time, we're quite happy for you just to go away and give this a really good go yourselves. And when it comes to that training, and any kind of where we're rolling out this information, we want to make sure it's really mobile friendly. If we're talking to people who are on the move, it's no good to us having content that actually, if it's opened up on a screen, the formatting goes all funny, or it's too small to read, or potentially it could even be that if we're training someone in a new system and they're going to be accessing it from their mobile, let's make sure that we're showing it to them on what a mobile view looks like. There's no point in us rolling out Teams training where all of the information is shown on a laptop screen if that person's going to be accessing Teams off a mobile. We want to make sure that they can see and feel what they're going to be accessing on a day-to-day basis and make sure that it's really easy to read on their own screens as well. I'm going to close the window really quickly because I can just hear building work outside. Give me 2 minutes. There we go. Not sure if you could hear that, but just in case. Now, gamification is a really nice way of getting people on board as well. Who doesn't like a bit of competition? And gamification could be where we've got an entire system that's built into an application which starts to take you through levels, starts to put you through challenges, or it can also just be making bringing a bit of fun into new technology. So a great example I could think of might be Viva Engage. Let's get people posting things where they're trying to come together and compete with one another and think about different ideas and saying, oh, well, this is my latest thing, and someone else replies saying, well, this is my example, and getting a bit of fun and enjoyment into this to encourage people to use it as well along the way, and having some kind of recognition and reward behind that gamification too is really going to help us incentivize those frontline workers and keep that continuous reinforcement there too. My last top tip, And this does go for anyone. This is always going to be part of our change management journey, but getting feedback from day one, constantly have open platforms for feedback and make sure we're acting on that feedback, make sure we're communicating what's being done on that feedback as well, so we can really understand what is landing well, what perhaps some people are struggling with, where more support might be needed, where there's still gaps that we can fill with further development down the line, and keep getting that feedback, keep telling people we've heard this and we've updated this to make it easier for you in nice, again, quick, easy to access communications, but keep that continuous build up. So it's not just a case of, here you go, here's the change, here's the stuff you need to go do it, here's the initial campaign material, and then quiet. We want to make sure that we keep checking in with people to see how it's going and keep building up with them. Now, on that 15th of November session is where I would really like to talk through in some more detail, hopefully get some nice case studies and show you some examples of what we've done elsewhere. But for now, I hope that gives you a little bit of a taster of some of the things that we'd like to focus on here at WM when rolling out change, particularly with frontline workers. Now, that is it for my session. Thank you so much for listening to me. Nin is now going to talk to us about our Frontline Digest, which I'm really excited for us to be showing. This is something quite new at WM Reply that we're really proud of. Nin has been absolutely fabulous, and I will say no more and let her talk through herself. So over to you, Nin.
Thanks, Jo. So just to give you a little bit of a flavour and a background into how the Frontline Digest came to life. Here at WM, innovation is something that is always encouraged. We actually host an innovation lab every year, which is our version of Dragon's Den. So what this means is there are 6 teams of WMers who compete against each other to win the investments of our clients who come and act as potentially the dragons. So what happens is each team presents an idea which solves a common business problem using M365 technology, and our fabulous panel of judges choose their favourite idea to invest in, and the winning team gets to bring that idea into life with a proof of concept. Now, the winning idea this year was my idea, Frontline Digest. So it was mine and my colleague, James Haddon. So this is now something that we started back in May, and it's been a while. The solution has been developed, and since then we've actually already been working with multiple clients on using the Frontline Digest for their specific use cases at their organisation. So let me just deep dive into why do we need the Frontline Digest? So before we had the solution, we really did a lot of research into Microsoft's work trend report, and we interviewed, Jo, would you mind going to the next slide? So we interviewed a lot of frontline workers when it was found that 58% of non-managerial frontline workers has said that communications is not reaching the frontline in an impactful way. So they're not getting the communications that they should be getting for their role. 46% has actually said that better tech reduces stress at work. So I, for one, know that when I come into work and knowing your immediate priorities, it will help all employees feel a lot more at ease and more efficient in their role. And there has been a 400% increase in Teams usage for frontline workers since March 2020. So what that means is that these corporations are investing in frontline worker licenses. So these workers are licensed. So why not use the licenses and actually maximize the investment by bringing a tool that brings communications to them in a short and digestible manner. So it can generally be quite hard to connect to frontline workers across all industries. With the Frontline Digest, we are being able to bridge that gap by being able to enable push notifications and bring a personalized digest into place. So what is the Frontline Digest? So the Frontline Digest is a custom Teams application that we've built, and this brings personalized communications to frontline workers. So there is a push notification that gets triggered at the start of their shift, at the start of their week. And within that notification, they have a screen of viewing their targeted headline news. So the news that they might have missed since their previous shift last week. So those priority items that they need to read, they've got that right at the top, with also built-in acknowledgements. Second, we also have the upcoming tasks of the week. So they have all of their assigned tasks, which is sorted in priority order, so they can know their critical tasks that they need to focus on when starting their shift. And finally, they also have their shift schedule of the week so that they can view all of their shifts and all timings in one screen without going into any other applications. So this tool works hand in hand with Viva Connections. So let's take a look at the application itself. So as you can see, there is a notification that is triggered for the frontline workers, which comes into the Teams activity feed notification. They click on it and it takes them to the Teams application, and they can say, hello, Nin, it's telling me, and it has straight away at the top my news. So this is pulling in from SharePoint News. So it's pulling in all of the news which they have missed in the past week. So it pulls in content of the previous week that they have missed. And you can see a quick preview of the news itself and also images and videos from the news article itself that you can view. And if you wanted to expand and read into it further, you can click on the news article, and that brings up the news article as a deep link SharePoint News page. So we also have multimedia coming in from the news page itself. So if you have multiple photos or videos, it's got a carousel that you can swipe on, and it has the videos that you can see on the video itself. So it should loading. So we also have built in RAID notification. So as you can see on the bottom there, there is a little tick box called read and understood. So this notification allows these frontline workers to tick off the news article once they have read it, so that it goes back into the content editors so that they have confirmed that this critical piece of news has been read and confirmed.
Lynn, has your demo frozen?
Yes, it has, I believe.
Let me just see if we can get it playing again. Here we go.
There we go.
I was thinking it might be coming. There's that video you were talking about.
There we go. So just so you can see that video that is able to view straight without leaving Teams itself. You can play the video. There we go, and minimize it there and then. So it's essentially that short bite of content that people can digest in a short way before starting. So as I scroll down, you also have my tasks. So this is bringing in tasks by planner. And these are all the tasks which are assigned to that specific user itself. So everyone's digest is going to be different. And this is tasks of this upcoming week. And finally, at the bottom, we have my shifts as well. So this is bringing in content from shifts, again, scheduled for that specific frontline worker. It's going to be bringing all the shifts for this upcoming week and time, so people will know exactly when to expect their shifts. And finally, we have also built in a archive feature so that people can scroll through and read the digest from the previous week in case they've been on holiday and they may have missed a digest. They can always look back and view the information that they need to read. So with the Frontline Digest, it's something that we're really holding close to our heart here at WM, and we're planning to grow this even further. So if you're interested in what you've just seen and want a more in-depth demo, or perhaps chat to us a little bit further, contact us at the email on the screen, and we'll be happy to demo this further. Now, what I've just talked about, the Frontline Digest, is all about bringing content to frontline workers. But what if this doesn't go all to plan and people need to ask questions or perhaps search content on a more broader level rather than just reading communications or tasks? Let me pass on to Anton to explain how AI can be used with the frontline workers.
Thank you, Nin. Hi, everyone, and welcome to our little tech corner. So today, as you know, everyone is talking about AI and everyone is talking about Copilot. But how can your frontline workers actually benefit of those features, keeping in mind that the price tag for some of the tools is quite prohibitive if you're thinking about how would you like to roll it out at scale? And we're going to talk about like few tools today, but it's also worth mentioning that last week, the Copilot for Dynamics 365 field services was announced, which will be actually included at no cost into the Dynamic 365 field services license. But the license itself coming at quite a big price. So if you have it, that's amazing. If you don't have it, I think it may be prohibitive as well. But the good news is that it's not only Copilot out there. So let's skip to the next slide and see what do we have. So first of all, something that Microsoft released into general public literally a few weeks ago, which was not that big news as Copilot, but I think that's one of the game changer features. It's Bing Chat for Enterprise. So Bing Chat Enterprise is a chat-based search engine that allows users to find relevant information from the internet and summarize text confidentially. So that's the most important bit. It's almost like you were using Bing Chat or ChatGPT from OpenAI yesterday, and you had to be very, very cautious about not exposing any confidential information about yourself or about your organization. So you had to hide those client names or your organization name. With Bing Chat Enterprise, this whole information is confidential, so it's not used to train model. Microsoft has no access to it. For example, you can ask questions like, I am a store manager in super fresh groceries chain, and tomorrow we have 6 new starters, and all of them were previously working in hyper foods chain. So how do I get ready for the day? So you can ask this question and it will grab information which is publicly available about those groceries chain. You don't have to hide it, and you can get answers from the internet based on your query. So this license is coming at £4 per user per month. I think it's going to be available on mobile devices pretty soon, but it's not there yet. But Bing Chat for general public, for consumers, is available today through the Edge browser. So this is kind of on the one side. On the other side, we have really robust M365 Copilot, which is your smart assistant, which helps with various tasks within M365. So it has access to all of your content. It has access to all your documents, to all your conversations, all your meetings, all your emails, and you can actually ask the tool questions about your data. Again, everything stays private, but it also able not just to give you answers or summarize documents, it can actually produce a PowerPoint or the Word documents for you. So for example, thing that you could ask is, okay, can you please create me a PowerPoint deck about the Project Unicorn? And if we go and search for all the information that you have access about Project Unicorn, it will collate it together, feed to large language model, and then produce you a PowerPoint deck. So that's an amazing tool. That's kind of the end game from Microsoft productivity AI perspective, but the cost, it comes at a cost, right? It's coming at £24 per user per month. So may not be the best option to license everyone in a huge organization. But between those two, we have kind of middle ground, intermediate options. The first one is Teams AI Library. So that's a collection of AI-powered features and tools that can enhance your collaboration with Teams if you're using bots today. So imagine if you have your service now, if you have your Workday for HR, or if you have your SAP, and today already you have your Teams bots, which are accepting commands which are quite prescriptive, but you can select the command from a drop down, give it some information, and it will go and create a ticket in ServiceNow or give you back the amount of holidays you have. But as I said, those commands are very kind of prescriptive and restrictive. So if we apply like a few little sprinkles of AI on top of this, you should be able to ask all those questions and make those requests in natural language. For example, you can ask, hey, book me a holiday for the earliest possible slot in October, where not more than half of my team is away. And if you already have all the integrations in place, and if you apply an AI to this query, so the engine is able to actually break down this request into few chunks. So first of all, it will go and like search for the team availability in October, pick up the slot where not more than half team on holiday, and then separately go and book holiday for you. So this is where AI basically transforms your request into a chunk of commands. So that's an amazing one. It's not coming at a per user cost, it's rather a consumption plan because you have to build this in Azure. But yeah, that's one of the kind of middle ground options. And another one, which is applicable to everyone, even if you do not have Teams bots today. So that's a combination of Azure Cognitive Search and OpenAI services in Azure and Teams bots. So imagine what happens today if you have a lot of standard operating procedures documents like manuals or the PDFs which are saying what to do in which situation, the manual or fix guides for your coffee machine or for your fridge, operating manuals for the doors. Today, on the front line, basically, you will have to go to the library, you will have to find a specific document, you will have to scan the document, scroll to the required section and just go find those steps and do them one by one. So if you apply Azure Cognitive Search to this, the tool will be able to actually index all of the documents you have and then surface them into Teams bot, and you should be able to ask questions in a very natural way, like, okay, what should I do if my coffee machine is showing me error code 5? So it will go and search for the error codes for the coffee machine that will give you the step-by-step guide. So again, it's not coming at a per user cost, but that's kind of consumption model on Azure would have to be built. And we're looking at about like £250 a month if we're talking about 100 employees not using this at Rage. So, and I think the last option is really compelling. So we at WM Reply, we see a really good value out of these tools to actually make your FAQ type of scenarios much more intelligent. So let's skip to the very quick demo where we about to explore the scenario. So imagine you're a frontline worker and you have this extraordinary situation. So you open Teams and you open your Alfred, which is a your helper Teams board, and you ask this question. Okay, so my coffee machine is showing me error code 1. What should I do? So you send it, the engine taking this request, searching all the documents you have, and it gives you suggested steps. So yeah, the error code 1 indicates that the coffee grinder is blocked. So those are particular steps to do when you have this problem. And then you've done something and say, okay, I've done this, but now the grinder grinds the coffee, but the drink is not coming out. Okay, what's next? Again, so you're asking this question, and then this board, it knows the context of your conversation. It knows about what machine you're talking with him today, and it's giving you suggested issues, root cause, and suggested steps to fix it. Okay, so there might be few reasons, like the grinder might be set to fine. In this case, you should adjust the grinder to the coarser settings, or your coffee exit duct might be blocked. So cleaning the coffee exit duct, it will help. So you've done this, and then say you are wrapping up your day, and then you're asking, okay, in the end of the day, how should I clean the milk container? And it search the manual for the coffee machine for this specific procedure, and it actually gives you the step-by-step instruction of how do you clean your milk container at the end of the day. And you can notice if you read in this that in the manual, this tool is actually called milk carafe, but you asking about the milk container, it can understand what you're actually talking about. So, comparing to your old FAQs, which have to be very specific questions that very, very precise, you can actually ask a question in a very natural kind of human way. And it can give you the step-by-step guide of how to clean this at the end of the day. And it can suggest that, hey, if you would like to do a daily or like weekly, monthly clean, there are other prescribed procedures. You can hyperlink to them, or you can ask another question to actually learn more. So that's kind of a very, very quick overview of the Teams bot that we've built with this capability. So feel free to reach out to us if you want to know more scenarios, more cases, how this could work with your specific data, with your specific instructions, and how we can customize it to solve your requirements. And that's all from the technical corner, and I'm passing back to Joe.
Thank you so much, Ant. That is all of our content for today. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining and listening in. We do still have our Q&A open if you'd like to post some questions. We do have sort of 5-10 minutes to answer them. We also do on the screen have a QR code which will take you straight to our next webinar, so no excuses not to be there. It's on the 15th of November. It will be a similar format to this. And equally, anything you want to reach out about that we've spoken about today, we have got our email on the screen there. We love talking to new clients, existing clients, whoever it might be. Please do reach out. If you don't have questions, I keep going on, or I was going on earlier about how much feedback means and how we need to get feedback from people so we can continuously develop. And we would absolutely love to get your feedback today. I did have a little QR code on there, but it's not popping up now. Perhaps it's because Carly, are you popping it in the chat instead? Yes, as you will see in our chat, if you could just, or the Q&A panel, if you could just pop over and click on the link to give us your feedback, that would be absolutely fab. We like hearing about how much you've enjoyed these events and hearing all the lovely things you're going to say about us. No, I'm being serious. We really like to hear how we can keep improving these and keep bringing you information that you really want to take away and what's really useful to yourselves. Carly, do we have any questions coming in?
Yeah, I have two, Jill.
Fab.
So the first one, and then this might be a good one for you, but it is, could the Frontline Digest be used for information workers as well? Does it have to be limited to frontline workers?
No, not at all. The concept was, I guess, built upon reaching those frontline workers, but this tool is completely adaptable to every type of worker because, as you know, it's important for everyone to know their immediate priorities and bringing those news across. And we are working with clients who are using it for different purposes, including information workers as well. So it definitely can be adapted for other purposes.
Yeah, I guess the benefit, Nin, is purely because we see regularly the challenge being with frontline workers, that getting all the information in one place can be more challenging. They don't have time sat on technology to scroll through and find the information. So that's why it's been designed for them. But I guess I wouldn't see any reason it couldn't be used for other roles as well. And we can absolutely talk about that possibility if someone was interested.
Fabulous. Thank you both. Joe, why don't you take this last one that we've got? It is, what is the difference between the Frontline Digest and Viva Connections? Do they do similar things?
Fab. So Viva Connections, for those of you who have heard of it before, is all about, first and foremost, bringing your company intranet into Microsoft Teams. It's all about making it really accessible. But on top of that, it adds layers where we can start to build information that's relevant to each person accessing it and be able to see information relevant to you. So similarly to what that Frontline Digest piece is doing, where it's flagging up to say, oh, these are your tasks that you want to work on this week, and here's news that you might be interested in. I think the difference is Viva Connections can do that on a grander scale. It would look at bringing in potentially more cards, so more different lots of information. You might have on there places to go and book your annual leave. You might have places to go off to other systems as well. So it's not necessarily that you would have to have one or the other. I really do believe they could work hand in hand. Similarly, though, I think with the Frontline Digest, it's about getting probably a slightly more simple kind of application in place to be able to communicate out to those frontlines specifically, rather than connections being something that you'd perhaps want to roll out to a wider group of people. But I think, yeah, I would just see it as kind of a streamlined version of getting a selection of the information that you might get from Viva Connections into that particular app there as well, and in one place, coming straight in as that one Teams notification each day. It's kind of a snapshot piece of information about your day or your week, as opposed to it being that kind of constant information that you can check in on a daily basis. But I just like talking about Viva anytime, so absolutely happy to talk about that in more detail another time.
Awesome. Thank you, Joe. That's all for questions.
Thank you very much then, everyone. We really appreciate you joining. We hope to see you in November. And yeah, all the best.